and welcome to another edition of The Link Online. Hello once again, and has everybody got their mics on there? You on? Terry, are you on? You on? Okay, no, you can actually talk. Don't fake it now, because this is the actual show. Say something. Hello?
I want to be a mime.
All right. Welcome to The Link Online. We're here with an interesting crew today. Terry Haig is with us today. Hello, Terry.
Hi, Mark.
And Levon Savons.
Hello, Mark.
And Marie-Claude Simard. Hi. The crowd goes wild. Yes,
erupts.
and we are also live today on the website, and we're also live on Facebook. And we used to say more or less around 16:20 hours UTC or GMT, as the case may be, but that's actually 16:15 GMT. We're on the button these days. We're right on the nose, as it were. All right, coming up on the show today, Levon, what do you have for us?
Well, humanitarian NGOs are sounding the alarm over the possibility of forced return of hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees back to their war-torn country.
I have to give you kudos, because Levon is suffering from a cold, and he's just doing the voice thing as best as he can. So
well, he gets it from his daughter. You know, the show has to go on.
The show has to go on. I have a story about a new project this summer to visit the wreck of the Titanic, and that is before it disappears forever.
Are you talking about the original movie or the...
No, the actual ship.
The actual
event. Down there, and I'll have you more about that. And Marie-Claude, you've got something a little bit interesting for us a little bit later on, right?
Yeah, it's related to the new version of our national anthem.
Aha. So those are some of the interesting things, along with some of your letters coming up on this edition of The Link Online. All right, let's start off with this legendary ship. It's a legendary shipwreck as well. It's the unsinkable Titanic, biggest ship in the world at the time. Well, it hit an ice...
Remember that song?
Yes, I do.
Oh, they built the ship Titanic, and when they had it through, well, they thought they had a ship that the water would not go through. But the Lord's almighty hand said the ship would never land. It was sad when the great ship went down. Oh, it went down. It went down.
It went down.
It was sad when the great ship went down to the bottom of it.
Okay, well, that's enough of that. Well, we have another guest just arriving in studio now.
Surprise guest.
It's a surprise guest.
Cameo.
Let's have the surprise guest introduce himself.
Okay, Mark, sorry to be late. To start with, I'm Luc Simard. I'm Director of Diversity and Community Relations for Radio Canada, so the French counterpart of what you're doing, and also working with the CBC on diversity questions.
And Luc is here because the CBC and Radio Canada are very interested in promoting diversity and reflecting the Canadian mosaic. Is that right?
Oh, that's absolutely what we're trying to do, and we have to say we still have a lot of work ahead of us.
What's been going on then at this point? What are the process? You've been looking at where we stand, right?
Yeah, well, there's only two aspects to diversity when we look at it from our broadcast point of view. I come from production. I've been doing a career here in production, in news production, current affairs, and that kind of stuff. So, of course, everything we put on air, kind of program you're doing at the moment, it's fundamental. It's the way we look towards the public. It's our image. Our business card is our programs. So it's important to reflect that diversity that we see in the population, larger and larger diversity. If you look at the census numbers that were published last fall, the 2016 census, we see that here in Montreal, for example, we have 1/3 of the population now, which is a visible minority. So that this is very important. I would say a bit less than 1/3, more around 1/4 to be more exact. But in that proportion of visible minorities, black people are very important. So we need to reflect that on air. Of course, when we talk about visible minorities, it's easier to see on TV, on pictures, video, and photography in general than on radio. But we need to reflect it everywhere. So this is the first aspect. The second, of course, is the content of the staff ourselves. ourselves. We need to reflect in the staff that demography that has been changing. It goes slower than we would like to because, of course, I mean, when you enter here to work in Radio-Canada, it's an interesting job, isn't it, for everybody, so people tend to stay. And it takes quite a while to renew that workforce. So we're in the long term, we have very specific targets that we want to achieve. And we're working towards that.
You're actually taking a survey at this point to find out what you have in terms of visible minorities and other aspects of diversity, right?
Yeah, that's for the staff, so the CBC Radio-Canada staff. It's voluntary, so people can fill it or not. They're not forced to do it. And there, if they do it, they can identify if they're Indigenous, if they're a visible minority, if they live with a handicap. And also we've introduced this year something quite interesting because when we talk about diversity, we cannot stop at one kind of diversity or the other. You see, we have to include all diversity. So we've also included the sexual orientation, and this is not. It's important to say it's not a legal or regulatory obligations to do that. We do it because we're a public broadcaster. We want to reflect the public on air and in the staff, and that's the reason why we ask our people or colleagues to fill up the census. Most of them do. I mean, we have a response rate of over 80%.
Where are we now in terms of that with the public broadcaster?
Well, I have to say that the CBC is ahead of Radio-Canada, so and for different reasons. They started earlier, and also if we just transport ourselves to Toronto, the level of demographic diversity, of course, is higher in Toronto than in Montreal. But let's not exaggerate that difference, because I hear that also a lot. Oh, you know, I mean, those things are for Toronto. Toronto is very different. It's not. I mean, I was just mentioning the numbers for Montreal. I mean, 1/4 of the population is visible minority, and if we would like to include all kind of cultural diversities, for example, people who have at least one parent born abroad, it's half of the population of Montreal. So that's a lot of people. So Montreal is also very, very diverse in its fabric, and we need to reflect that. We have, as I say, employment targets, hiring targets, and it's quite challenging for the years ahead, because on Radio-Canada, so in the French sector, the vice president has mandated its. Not its, but his is managing it, not managing editors, but the higher level after the vice president to hire 1/4 of their new hires among diverse employees. That means people with handicap, native, indigenous, or visible minorities. That's quite challenging. It's a big objective.
So that's the plan in the years ahead, then?
Yeah, this is the plan. This is this is the plan this year. I mean, the target I'm talking about are for this year, for the current year, the year that, I mean, this is jargon probably for the listeners, but in CBC Radio-Canada, our fiscal year ends on the 31st of March, and we start a new year on the 1st of April, not the 1st of January like anybody else, but the budget year is on the 1st of April, and this is a target for now.
Well, then, Mr. Luc Simard, thank you so much for coming in and talking a little bit about the projects ahead here at Radio-Canada and CBC. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. There we have Mr. Luc Simard, who is in charge of diversity here at Radio-Canada and CBC. And we're going to continue with some of the other stuff we have on the program for today, including this story about the Titanic, which is going to be... No more singing, Terry, please. We've done... We'll have some singing later on. You can sing "O Canada" with the rest of us. Now, as I was saying, there's a plan going down to the Titanic this year, and it may be the last chance because the ship is rusting away so quickly that it may simply disappear in 10 or so years. And there's a high-tech company in Newfoundland, imaging company called Subsea, which is involved in this project, and they're going to be going down this summer with this miniature submarine, which is going to take passengers. It's a little thing, can take 4 or 5 passengers on board, and if you have a lot of money, you can go down and see the Titanic. Anyway, I spoke to Ron Collier of Subsea, and in this excerpt of a conversation, he talks about the challenges of operating at a depth of almost 4 kilometers.
Technically, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a particular challenge for us. We've actually designed our products to go as deep as 11,000 meters, and our standard designs are for 6,000 meters. But the depth itself, you're right, it presents a lot of challenges just from getting to that depth and having equipment to operate reliably at that depth. But we have a tremendous amount of experience with that, and I think that's, again, one of the reasons why people come to us when they're looking for something that's a little bit different, innovative, and can work under those types of harsh conditions.
Now, of course, the technology has increased enormously since the last visit to the Titanic, which I believe was around 2005. What kind of images are going to come out of this? I mean, what's 4K, for example, and are there going to be 3D type of things developed out of this, or what exactly?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The improvements in the technology in terms of the resolution of the video and the stills that are captured are going to be dramatically better. So to give an example, high-definition video has a frame of 2 megapixel, and 4K video has a frame of 8 megapixel. So what you're looking at is 4 times the resolution in 4K video as you're getting from high-definition video. And of course, 4K certainly wasn't around at the time of the last visit to the Titanic. And the other thing that's really changed is the video processing capability. So now we can take, from the video, we can take multiple data points and be able to generate 3D models of a scene. So with respect to the Titanic, just by surveying the Titanic in its entirety and generating all these data points, you can create a 3D model of the entire wreckage.
What kind of state is it expected to be in? Because I'm told that it's actually rusting away quite quickly.
Yeah, the Titanic, I guess a lot of iron-based vessels, tends to deteriorate quite, well, I would say quite rapidly, but it has been down there quite a long time. But of course, it's deteriorating at an accelerating rate. And I believe the last estimate was something in 15 to 20 years. There may not be a whole lot left. And we're looking at it's about 15 years since anybody's been there. So I think you're going to see some significant deterioration. Hopefully, we catch it before it's gone too far.
And that was an excerpt of my with Ron Collier of Subsea, which is a high-tech deep-sea imaging firm in Clarenville, Newfoundland, and they'll be capturing images of the Titanic as part of a summer operation to map the remains of the ship in very high definition and produce 3D modeling of the ship and so on. And as he says, this may be the last time to see the ship because it is rusting so quickly. Maybe nothing left but a rusty stain on the ocean floor in just about a decade or so.
Well, what's quickly? I mean, it's been down since what, 1916 or what 1913? What year was it?
1912.
1912. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they went. Remember, you saw the images in
years.
1985. It was still kind of identifiable, but it's rusting, and there's bacteria that eat the metal. And that's what's happening to it. They've discovered this. Anyway, so it's we'll see what's left of it when these guys go down this summer. And as they say, some scientists have said, maybe nothing left but a little pile of rust on the floor of the ocean in about a decade. No more ship, no more nothing.
Are you going to wheedle a little trip?
I'd like to, but you know what it costs? It costs over $100,000.
The CBC pays for it.
Oh. That's the big. All right, we'll be back with more. All right, getting on to a very serious subject. Humanitarian NGOs are sounding the alarm over the forced return of Syrian refugees to their homeland, which is still involved in a lot of conflict. Levon, you looked into this.
Yeah, Mark, earlier this week, a coalition of humanitarian NGOs warned that hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees are at risk of being pushed to return to Syria in 2018. This despite ongoing violence, bombing, and shelling. For more on this, I spoke with Rula Kay. She's a humanitarian advisor with Save the Children Canada. And we're not using her full last name for security reasons. She has still has family inside Syria and is worried about possible reprisals against them. I spoke to her on the phone from Ottawa, and once again, I apologize for my squeaky voice. I'm still recovering from a very bad flu.
the conflict in Syria now approaching its 8 years, resulting in over than 6 million internal displaced people, over than 5 million are refugees in neighboring countries, and over 1 million fled to Europe. Actually, just last year, 721,000 people returned in Syria, and at the same time, 2.3 million people had to flee their homes. 1.8 million of them displaced inside Syria, and 500,000 fled to other countries as refugees. So for every Syrian who returned home last year, another 3 were displaced.
So the worry is that, if I understand correctly, that the situation on the ground is still very unstable for the safe return of the refugees?
Yeah, so the violence that has displaced Syrians both internally and to neighboring countries continues and has actually increased in some places inside Syria. The many refugees who have returned or been pushed back, like to return to some parts of Syria, have found themselves in the middle of a major military offensive in some areas with heavy bombing and mass displacement again. Thousands of schools, hospitals are out of action, and that means that children who return, they struggle to access education and health care. Actually, humanitarian needs assessment by Save the Children partner identified that most of those who has returned from Irsal, which is in Lebanon, were moved to Idlib, north and west of Syria, where they found themselves at risk from escalation of violence in the area. They did not have access to adequate shelter or livelihood when they arrived.
That was a conversation with Rula Kay. She's a humanitarian advisor with Save the Children Canada. And again, we're not using her full last name for security reasons. She still has family inside Syria and is worried about possible reprisals.
And I just want to mention again that you can get the full interviews. We're playing excerpts of our full interviews, and you get them by going to the highlights section on our webpage. And now it's time to take a look at some of the comments that you have posted to some of the stories. And you can post your thoughts and comments, read the comments posted by others as well. If you go right to the very bottom of the story page to submit your comment. And starting us off today, we have several comments to a story about Canadian College offering a course in homeopathy and doctors' strong reaction to that. And to start off, slightly different concern from regular visitor Fabio Teghetti in Italy, who asks...
So Fabio writes, is it homeopathy? Or, as spelled in the dictionary photo above the headline, or homeopathy, according to your spelling? Which is it, Montgomery?
Well, here's the thing. The photo that I used on that story was a photo of a dictionary page, and what they're showing with the funny kind of spelling, homoeopathy, is the phonetic spelling, and it uses the diphthong, which we really don't use all that often anymore. When you have the old Middle English and the Latin form where they crushed the two letters, the two vowels together, A and E, or O and E in this case. We still use it, for example, the word pediatrics, right? It's AE. I mean, the Americans use E, but often you will still see pediatrics, PAE, which is one of those diphthong things. And actually, if you look on a really old typewriter, you may see they have the diphthong key there, if you were to paste it. There are words that, a lot of words we have that don't use it. Phoenix, the word phoenix, that's OE, and that is one of those diphthong words that we still use. Fetus, amoeba, algae, those are all diphthong words that we still use, although we tend not to jam the letters together, A and E or O and E, as the case may be. So antenna is another one. Anyway, so there you go, a little explanation on that one. Now, moving on to the story about homeopathy and the reaction to it, Rosalind Ross asks this.
No one ever explains how, now how do I want to say it? Homeopathy?
That's good.
Okay. Is quackery, okay, which means fraud, that thousands of doctors around the world, particularly in Europe, opt to spend another 2 to 3 years training in homeopathic medicine, and then go on to spend decades practicing both allopathic and homeopathic medicine. How could that happen if it were quackery? Yeah, how could that happen?
Well, on the other side of the issue, Colin A. McKenzie asked,
Oh, Canada, How could you recognize such quackery?
And then Dr. Sci Guy said,
Don't like it when some of those consumer dollars go to anything but Big Pharma. Eh, Big Pharma? Let's be clear here. Pharmaceutical companies make their living from natural plant compounds. Now it thinks it has the monopoly on plant compounds. Or now it thinks it has the monopoly on plant compounds?
yeah, okay, that's well done.
Thank you.
But I think Dr. Sci may be perhaps confusing homeopathy with naturopathy, which are not the same, and it's a very common mistake. But the debate continued over the story's scientific anger over college degree in homeopathy, with a later response to Rosalind from a poster named Xavier Kidstone.
It doesn't work, writes Xavier. Homeopathy has no scientific basis. Water has no memory. It's H2O. It's like saying CFCs have a memory. What's a CFC?
Chlorofluorocarbons.
Okay, thank you. And they don't. It's a quack question that preys on morons who think they know everything and never listen to any scientific evidence that contradicts their viewpoint.
All right, moving on to another story. This one from Friday, just posted actually today, about the Yukon Quest dog sled race, and Marjorie wrote,
Long-distance sled dog endurance races are cruel to dogs.
all right, we had a comment this week to a story originally from 2015 called Canada Has Water, U.S. Wants It, and a quick comment from someone posting as DT.
The water belongs to Canada, not the USA. We'll see about that.
All right, and we have a bit of
To be continued.
we have a bit of a controversy over the statue of Edward Cornwallis, who was the founder of the city of Halifax, and who was accused of attempted genocide of Mi'kmaq Aboriginals. And our story was Cornwallis statue removed, rewriting history. The statue was removed this week and put in storage. And Blair wrote,
Council acted too fast and gutless. Only 4 members voted the way they felt. Mob mentality won the day.
all right, we're going to move on a little bit here to an historical item. We're going down farther on the page there, Terry, to the last item here, because we want to get in the singing part of the program.
Yeah, I thought we did.
Yeah, well, there's more singing.
Oh, okay.
This is a historical item about the merging of Canada's Army, Navy, and Air Force into the single Canadian Armed Forces designation on February 1st, 1968. It was a historical item on our website. It has since generally become known simply as the Canadian Armed Forces, although just the letters CF are generally used, Canadian Forces.
Anymore. The A is back.
Yeah, well, that's it. The A is back. But at the time, they just called it CF, the Canadian Forces. And Carl Gustav, you'll get the joke on that one, Levon, because that's kind of an inside joke name by military people. Anyway, he wrote, Terry?
As I recall, they told us that they removed the armed because it sounded too aggressive.
Yes, we don't want our military to be too aggressive.
Yeah. Because, hey.
All right, so Carl Gustav, thank you very much for that. All right, let's move on to another aspect of the program that Marie-Claude has brought to us. Marie, you want to... Claude?
Well, it's a story that Carmel Kilkenny wrote this week. So the new version, the new gender-neutral version of our anthem received a royal assent today, not today, Wednesday. So I thought, well, since last time we had so much fun finishing the show with the bagpipe music, I thought we could end the show with music too. So I thought, well, first of all,
Is that you humming, Levon? Well, wait a minute. When you say gender neutral, we have to explain. Because,
that's it.
Because what happened is there was a big controversy. It's been going on for a long time about Canadian national anthem, because it says one of the lines says
In the English version.
In the English version, because the French version, the English version has actually changed several times over the decades. The French version has never changed, but in the English version, one of the lines was changed like in 1920 or something to "In all thy sons' command." And a lot of people took umbrage at that, saying, what about women? So there's a big debate about to make it gender neutral. And so the question was, shall we change it to "in all of us command"? 2 words.
All of us?
Yeah.
All of us command.
Yeah.
That's not a very good translation. You could have come up with something better.
Well, I think that's the original wording that was created in 1908.
Something like that, yeah. And it was changed because of the First World War and stuff, and they wanted, our boys sort of thing, So the line was, in all thy sons command, and it's changed now 2 words, in all of us command. And it's been years that they've been arguing about this. Finally, it's passed, And Marie-Claude?
Yeah, so my first idea was that we could listen to our MPs Wednesday when they sang the new version. And so, well, we'll listen a little bit of it, but I also had another idea after that.
So this is Canada's Parliament, the members of Parliament in Ottawa.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
So you notice that in all of us command?
I got it.
You got it?
Actually, it's better than I thought. When you first proposed this, you were saying
I don't know
that.
why, but I'm not cringing as much now as the first time when I listened to it. Maybe I wasn't in the
Yeah,
right
but you're a professional
mood.
musician.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah,
Anyways, I thought I would propose to you my favorite version of our national anthem. That's also very Canadian version and very politically correct version, and beautiful version. So here it is. It's comes from the Newfoundland. Oops.
The tour.
Yeah, Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism Bureau. So here it is.
Ah, from sea to shining sea.
You guys like whales?
Oh, it's Wales. Okay.
There's no problems with the wording in this one.
Beautiful scenery, though. Eh?
Yeah, and also Newfoundland was in the news this week. St. John was recognized as the most open city, so it's a beautiful place.
I'm wondering whether they used hydrophones to record some of these sounds, because it sounds like real hydrophone sound.
Well, I'm sure they did, yeah.
But this is like a Photoshop. It's not them actually singing, doing all Canada in tune.
Oh, yeah, you've seen those things on TV. Look at that, beautiful. Look at that.
And we should say, as a part of News Quiz, Canada has actually proposing to ban the capture of cetaceans, whales and dolphins, as part of its new Fisheries Act.
And that was one of the stories that you had on the website
Yes.
as well, so you can find out a bit more about that. Well, wasn't that tremendous? The whales singing,
Yeah.
Oh Canada. Well, wow.
Isn't it?
The melody, anyway.
Yeah, I love whales.
Majestic animals.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, we're gonna bar the killing of whales and dolphins.
Not the killing, but hunting for the purpose of keeping them in captivity.
Yeah, so shows
Oh
like
yeah, that's happening. Yeah, that's
So
thanks
for,
to animal
for
justice.
places like marine land,
No more. You can't bring them in anymore.
yeah, you cannot capture live wild animals, wild whales and dolphins, or porpoises,
yeah.
to be kept in shows like that.
Yeah. So what did you think of that? I mean, that was pretty pretty cool. We should play out on that. Do it again. Come on.
It's kind of like a
Come on,
'60s, kind of like a '60s thing. You know?
play it again.
Okay.
Let's go out on the whales.
Okay, here we go.
Newfoundland, our sophists digging that. Okay.
Ready?
Go.
Here we go.
My favorite part is the sound of the ocean at the beginning.
Close your eyes.
Look at this. Is that Newfoundland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at that. Da-da. Our home and native.
No, we get the tune, but how do they do that?
Well, it's like
How do they train those
remember
whales to
It's like when the cats, you've got cats singing "Happy Birthday" and dogs singing things.
Okay.
They take little bits and
Rearrange them.
Oh, you mean it's not real?
yeah, it's real. These are real whale sounds.
No, I understand it's real whales.
But they're montage, they're put together. It's edit, cut and paste.
Oh, they're so beautiful. Ah.
But Newfoundland is known for whale watching as well. There, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, the coast there, some great whale watching as well.
And Quebec too.
Yeah, Quebec too. Yeah. Hello, the whale's waving at us there. He's signaling us that it's almost time to go out today. Almost time to say goodbye. Terry Haig, thank you for joining us today.
Work on my material.
Levon, thank you.
I sound like a beached whale, but
You're doing a great job. Mary Claude, thank you very much for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
MC always brings interesting stories, eh?
Well, that's why we pay her the big bucks.
That's right. That's why she's moving her way up into the organization. Going to be on the 22nd floor soon. Management.
And in the control room, Chantal Saint-Sauveur. Thank you so much, Chantal. And there you go, the Newfoundland and Labrador. Bye-bye, everyone.
bye.